Chapter 10. Killing Gumiho. After returning to her lair, Gumiho used a recovery spell to recover as she felt her flesh torn from hollow point fragments. And despite how much flesh was torn, her kitsune biology made her incredibly difficult to kill, recovering even from the most severe diseases given enough time. But for her time was short, for she left a trail of blood and smell that would lead right back to her lair, and Protogens and Blondie were already on their way, and it was the first time one of her victims fought back and lived. Victor's dream. While resting, Victor had a dream, and in his dream, he wore the fine silk robes he wore as the prince of the clan, and had masterfully crafted katana attached to the golden sash around his waist. And the katana had a word engraved into the blade, and that word was truth. And what lied before him were the bloodied corpses of two creatures, one with the head of a wolf and the body of a lamb wearing a priest's vestments, the other with the head of a rattlesnake and the body of a man wearing a lawyer's garment. And their names were the names of the arch-heresiarchs, Corvin, Several, and Apollonius. And Victor's katana, with the name of truth, was stained with their blood, but not a drop of blood stained Victor's clothes, for their blood was on their own heads, and blood leaked from their corpses and spelled the words vanity and pretense, and their blood leaked from the stab wounds where the sword named Truth had pierced their hearts. And in the midst of them stood the mutilated image of Okami Inari, who had a burning hatred towards Victor as if he had killed her own children. And on the mutilated image of Inari were the masterful slicing marks of a master swordsman. Inari was barely standing. The image then spoke. You could have had all the kingdoms of the world and all their glory if you just bowed down and worshipped me. Victor then responded, You shall worship the Lord your God, and only him shall you serve. Though you call yourself a god, you will die like men and have your infants dashed against the stone. Victor then drew the sword of truth and sliced Okami Inari in half, leaving only a few drops of blood on his clothes. That said the name of his birth, Inari, and the sins of his past he had done in the name of prosperity. Burn the witch. It was long in Gumiho's past when Gumiho met the Dark Mage Isis, and from her she learned dark magic and betrayed the Yako family creed to uphold what is pure and good. And it is through the power of their hearts and livers that she could do abilities some considered to be unnatural. Gumiho became Isis's first real dark accolade, with her even learning how to raise corpses from the dead. Albeit it was not a true resurrection, but a soulless corpse animated through the will of the Dark Mage and her dark magic. And now with the Protogens and Blondie coming to bring her to just judgment, Gumiho was going to need all the corpses she could get to defend her lair, and began robbing graveyards. Catechumens. As Victor continued to catechize his oversized class of catechumens, he began to instruct them on how to protect themselves from dark magic, along with being instructed in the faith. And even though he knew nothing of the Gospels, there was a priest of Okami Inari who, out of curiosity from watching horror movies, said the Lord's Prayer to see what would happen, and after saying, "Deliver us from evil," a young kid overtaken with dark magic was immediately healed. And upon seeing this, he burned his shrine and immediately became a catechumen under Victor's instruction. And then there was another catechumen, who was a beautiful young vixen, and a mastery in artistic ability, and began to restore all the icons and statues within the monastery, with the help of her friends from the university. And out of a friendly gesture, she even made a portrait of Victor slapping Corvin Several, even if Victor never met Corvin Several, and the story being an urban legend. And then there were the tradesmen, who used their trades and completely rebuilt the entire monastery, making it look brand new. Victor was so astonished with the quality of work and the devotion of his catechumens that he prostrated before them in tears of joy and could not stop being grateful for them. And with Victor instructing his catechumens in holiness, dark magic began losing its control over the people of the Kitsune clan, making Victor's monastery the first sanctuary dark magic could not touch, and becoming even more beautiful than the grandest shrine to Okami Inari. And for the first time in over a century, Victor began to have hope for the salvation of his own people. A cave of horrors. As Blondie and his protegens followed the pack of scent hounds to Gumiho's lair, there was the smell of rotting corpses that could even slightly be smelled through the protegen visor air filtration system. With those putrid smells and rotting pieces of internal organs on the ground, the protegens and Blondie knew without a doubt this was Gumiho's lair. All the protegens and Blondie then activated their night vision and released the safeties on their shotguns while lighting their flamethrowers to burn the witch. And as Blondie and the protegens trekked deeper into the cave, corpses began to rush them as the protegens opened fire, leaving blood and guts all over the floor and alerting Gumiho to their presence. And that's when Gumiho spit out a half-eaten heart and liver and grabbed her weapon of choice. Then as more zombies rushed, Blondie and the protegens used their flamethrowers to burn the zombies before they could get close. And when Blondie and the protegens reached Gumiho's chamber, Gumiho gave out an evil screech like summoning the skeletons wielding blades to attack them. Gumiho then screeched, "The Kitsune clan is dead. The keys of prosperity now belong to Master Isis and will destroy you all." Blondie and the protegens then torched the skeletons with their flamethrowers and ripped apart more zombies with buckshot and energy blades. And while Blondie and the protegens were distracted with the zombies and skeletons, Gumiho attempted to flee. But Blondie wasn't having any of it, not while Gumiho's existence still threatened his boss Inari. So Blondie pulled out his shotgun and fired a buckshot burst that severed one of Gumiho's stolen tails and weakened her magic. And without as strong magic as she once had, she could no longer summon zombies but only skeletons. And even though Gumiho summoned skeletons to fight off Blondie, Blondie used his wolf paws and strength to rip them apart. And once he caught up to Gumiho, he pulled out his shotgun to end the witch and killed so many innocents that he was ready to end her right then and there. He didn't care that Gumiho was still dangerous with her 8 stolen tails from all her Kitsune victims. Gumiho then used her dark magic to summon a chain and rip Blondie's shotgun and other weapons from him and flinging them far away from him. Gumiho then attempted to get close to Blondie and rip his guts out. But he was a wolf Inu and stronger than her and forced Gumiho to the ground and stripping her of her stolen tails. And without her tails, Gumiho could no longer use her magic. But that didn't mean Gumiho wasn't dangerous. Right then, Blondie bit into Gumiho's neck with his wolf maw. She stabbed him in his gut while she bled out. And with a deep wound, Blondie would soon pass out after ending the witch that killed so many Kitsunes. Blondie in the hospital. After his encounter with Gumiho and passing out, Blondie woke up in a hospital with a blood transfusion and Inari by his side wearing a modest but elegant robe. Inari then gently held Blondie's paw hand and, without the keys of prosperity clouding her mind, she felt something again inside herself, unsure of what it was. Inari then said, "Thank the Okami, all right. I know it must have been difficult, but I'm happy you're still with me. And for a few weeks, I'd like you to take some time off while I can take care of myself without having to worry about Gumiho anymore. And you deserve being my right paw hand man." Inari then thought to herself, even though I'll never admit it, I think my brother may have known something I didn't. So perhaps I should be like him while still maintaining all my success. Who says I can't make Smaug look like chump change and be as great as my brother? And shortly after keeping Blondie in good company while he recovered from blood loss, she returned to her palace, now devoid of pornographic statues of nude kitsunes. And then she returned to her private chambers to meditate, thinking, although Gumiho is dead, dark magic still remains. I don't understand. Why is dark magic still thriving in the clan even after the death of the Dark Mage that summoned it? It seems we've only stopped a symptom, but have not cured the disease. And I need to find what the root cause of this disease is. First for my public image, and then the needs of the lower classes. And with the cure most likely being my brother, my public image is likely already condemned. Keys of Prosperity. With Gumiho dead and the Dark Mage Isis having the keys of prosperity in her possession, she fondled them and said, Gumiho has served her purpose. It's wonderful to have acolytes who follow your every command, believing they'll share in my power for my new world. Fools. There is only one person the future exists for, and that is my own will. And the future belongs to those who take it by force. In my future, there will be no more compassion or mercy, only what people deserve and those to rule over the masses with me at the top. And with the keys of prosperity in my possession, I now have the means to grow my own power, and no longer need King Azrael as my willing pawn. But why not get all the use I can out of him, and bleed him dry? Did you know this? Victor's Dream. Victor's dream is heavily symbolic and poetic, and isn't meant to be taken literally. Rather like Psalms and Revelation, it is meant to point to a deeper truth using hyper-abstract language. The meaning of Okami Inari is in the name. Okami, meaning the great god, and Inari, meaning wealth and worldly success. In essence, it means the great idol of worldly success and vanity. And in Victor choosing to cut Okami Inari in half, is a metaphorical smashing the idols of greed and vanity, and the meaning of dashing her infants against the stone, as destroying the corrupt fruits of greed and vanity before they can grow into anything. It is much the same context as the Psalms when it speaks of dashing the Babylonian infants against the stone, which does not mean literally killing infants against rocks, but about destroying vices before they can become anything substantial, with Babylon often being used as a metaphor for the source of all vices. The meaning of the corpses is what these kinds of heretics were. The heretic in the priest's vestments, whose blood spelled vanity, is the person who, under the guise of religiosity, believes himself wiser than the church, and believes himself to be purer than everyone else, but is a wolf in sheep's clothing, twisting the teachings of the church for his personal ends. The heretic wearing the lawyer's garment is the pretentious person who pretends to be intelligent and to have secret knowledge that others are incapable of knowing, and uses manipulation and pretense to control others for his own end. Both these are destroyed by the sword of truth, because truth reveals and destroys their false personas, and in essence destroys their false selves, which is all they are at that point, hence destroys them too. Victor slapping Corvin Several. This was a reference to St. Nicholas/Santa Claus slapping the heretic Arius at the Council of Nicaea. We know this did not happen, because Arius never attended the council and the story started out as an urban legend, and primarily known because of memes. However, lore-wise, Corvin Several is like a crossover between two heresies, Calvinism and Gnosticism, that said Christ's humanity was only an illusion and not a true humanity. Corvin Several also believed, because of original sin, that physical matter was inherently evil. So the goal of life is to escape from the sinful physical world and into the good disembodied state, if you are part of the predestined elect, while everyone else is damned to hell. Corvin Several also denied the Trinity and subscribed to Sabellianism. So the followers of Corvin Several go into being a full-on heresy and virtually unrecognizable as Christians, with many describing the followers of Corvin Several as being a completely different religion.